shit. Fucking finally! Oh my god, the pressure on that outro was so fucking insane. I could not even feel my fucking heartbeat or anything. Oh my god, this is finally over. That fucking lag score has been beaten. These ticks are really bad. Whatever, man. I am just so relieved this is finally over. This isn't a grind that I've been just like hammering at constantly like a lot of stuff I do, but I've been going for this on and off for so fucking long. I didn't think this was going to be the run. I thought the green-blue whammy wasn't good enough. Holy shit, dude. That is almost certainly, at the very least for where it is in the song, the hardest whammy squeeze I've ever hit. It's really weird because I, seriously, not even probably 15 minutes ago, I still have PCSX2 open. I just retasked this last act for the first time since I went for my initial score of this back in like February, because I wanted to see if there was potentially a better, or like if activating on the yellow-blue chord gave like an extra frame, because sometimes there are just weird hit window quirks. The main reason I thought that is because the first act is on that same pattern, the red before the yellow-blue chords, and I swear that hit window is a frame bigger. Maybe I'm just overestimating it because I'm so incentivized to go for the biggest squeeze possible on that last act, but it always feels like I can push that first act just a hair further. So yeah, that's what got me, because I've been doing this on and off for so fucking long now that like, oh god. Something had to give eventually. I don't know how many fucking runs of this song I've done. The fact that it took this many attempts to hit the squeeze one time, and I just, thank fucking god, did not choke that outro. That would have been such a unbelievable heartbreak. And I actually, today, when I started doing attempts, when I fuck up the last act, I play through the outro just to like try to keep up consistency on that, because again, I'm doing this so like on and off that I can just lose consistency with sections like that. And for the first time in quite a while, I started missing that outro on these attempts, and so that was just another like, oh my god, am I really gonna be able to even do this? And right after I hit the last squeeze, I was just kind of in a suspension of belief, and my immediate thought was, if you miss this outro, it's alright, you can do this again. And like, it was, I don't know if that just like the tiny crux I needed to keep everything together. But I remember, I say I remember, this was like 3 minutes ago, but I remember immediately after having that thought, there was a secondary thought that was creeping in that was saying, no, fuck that, get this right now, get this over with. Because sometimes I just have to accept that, you know, like I've said in so many of these videos, that these grinds are just going to break your heart in half over and over and fucking over again. And so I've gotten to the point where, with a lot of stuff, where I just tell myself immediately after doing the hard section, or one of the hard or the hardest part of a grind, that like, you just gotta accept what happens. But at the same time, there is just no denying the reality of the situation, that this has taken so motherfucking long across so many sessions and attempts to hit this squeeze a single time. And if you fuck this up, yeah. And again, the fact that I was missing that outro and had to go re-practice it and ingrain the muscle memory, that was so terrifying. And it's cool that I did this on Xbox also, because it means that in some way my PS2 record stays alive. And I actually really like that PS2 record, because it's, you know, no drop ticks and that pretty cool front and back end solo squeeze. So yeah, I'm glad that got to survive in some sense. But yes, dude, We beat it! We beat the fucking lag score! Let's go! So as I said earlier, I just got done re-TASing that the last act only, and I found something that I really should have known all this time, but that act actually has a frame less leniency than I initially thought when I tested it. It's not surprising at all because of how insanely hard this act was to get, but basically the first time I tasked that last act out, it came to a 5-frame window with 3 whammies. But what I apparently didn't remember about that TAS is I must have used buffered first frame whammy on that red hammer-on sustain, because this time TASing it, it was a 4-frame window, and 4 frames with 3 whammies, I mean, that is like absolutely pushing the realistic potential for getting a squeeze like this for me. And even though this song is not very long, having to wait until the end to get a shot at an act like this is just miserable. And, you know, compounding onto that is just everything else in this song, because the first act is really annoying. I really hate these acts where you have to maximize ticks as much as possible, especially because if I had hit that last squeeze and hit the outro and missed the record by ticks when they weren't even good on the lag run, I don't know what I would have done, man. So I had to keep some control over tick bleed. And again, these ticks were really bad. I was usually finishing in the upper 40s on, you know, runs that I just missed the last act back end and kept going. But on it, like, whatever, it's enough. Who gives a fuck? As for where else this song can go, there is another 400 on both the solo and second acts. Not each together. The second act was a 2-frame window, I remember, from my first TAS, or my only TAS of the second and solo acts, and that had 2 whammies on it. And the real reason I shelved going for that is not necessarily because of the frame data, although that is insane frame data, and I would be very surprised if I were ever able to hit that by itself in a vacuum. The real thing that would make that act so insane to get is the fact that the whammy for it is just awkward as hell. But, you know, even if you do manage to get that act, you have to contend with the rest of the song, and the solo, it's whatever, especially to get to this point where you're realistically grinding for this last act. You have to be able to hit the solo literally every time, and the solo squeeze, even though it's not hard at all. But just like I mentioned, how the outro, the pressure on that was just unreal. It would be the same thing with the solo, probably a lot worse even, especially because you have to worry about multiple activations afterward. Obviously the last act regular squeeze is pretty much a joke, but under the pressure, like getting even just mild whammy off that solo after hitting the solo and the solo squeeze, like all of that shit would just be so much harder, and then you still have the outro to contend with after all that. So yeah, second act just did not see the incentive, even with how many more attempts you get at it over time. The solo act may be the hardest in the song. For my task of it, it was a 4-frame window with 3 whammies. However, particularly the first whammy would be incredibly hard to optimize. And seeing as that act has the same frame data as the last act, you have to maximize whammy. So yeah, not only does the first star power sustain for the solo act happen at the end of that big hopo sequence, which just complicates the hell out of it, it's also a chord, and not only a chord, it's a chord that doesn't even share a fret with the previous notes in the sequence, which just would make it so hard to properly fret that and hit it frame perfectly while dodging the whole hopo eating your strums and shit. Like, that would just be a nightmare to optimize. The second whammy is, you know, better, but it still sucks. Like, you're holding out a blue sustain before it shows up, and sure, it ends pretty prematurely before you know, that chord's hit window is active, but it would still be really difficult to get perfect whammy on that chord without dropping a significant amount of ticks on the blue, I think. Maybe not, maybe I'm overestimating it. The third whammy is attached to that chord, so it's really not a big deal, and it's, you know, shares the same fret. All that is to say that whammy for that solo act would be incredibly hard to optimize, and that is not even close to the end of the trouble it would be to hit that solo double, because the front end would also just be so shitty to deal with. And just like trying to optimize whammy on the yellow-orange chord for that act, you'd probably drop a bunch of ticks on that yellow getting into position to do a heavy extended hit window front end, if you can even abuse that. I don't even remember on the blue-orange chord front end, so that act seems like a complete nightmare as well, and that's how I ended up going for this. Again, this has been a long time coming, and you know, the big reason it's been so off and on is because there really wasn't like a big incentive to go for this. It's not like logically consistent with anything else I've been doing. I have to be able to separate lag and no lag scores, because most of the lag scores are impossible by a wide margin. And the ones that maybe aren't, like John the Fisherman's Super Fringe, would be so unbelievably nightmarishly hard that it would never be worth it. But yeah, I guess it was just the fact that I knew that I could beat this with some semblance of reality. And god damn, it feels good to have finally done it after all this time. This was what I was originally going for back in, like I said, February, when I first picked up this song, as I was trying to get this last squeeze. Because back then, also, I basically avoided all of the songs with lag scores on Score Hero because I didn't see a point in going after them. I had no, like, full game ambitions at that point, and I was just trying to get first on every song that I could, and so, like, these songs, I just considered them, like, tainted. There was no point in playing them. So yeah, it really sucked back then to have to settle for a no lag. This song is actually where that started, the no lag glitch category that I pretty much had to create to compete in these songs. And even though, like I said, I really like that PS2 record, it still really sucked to have to step back from this act, because it was just way too fucking hard, especially for me at the time. I keep beating these fake scores. It's so weird.